Russell Wilson has been traded to the Denver Broncos. Tom Pelissero reports that there is a deal in principle to send 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In exchange for...
All right, back now with you on Total Access with breaking news out of Green Bay. We go straight to Tom Pelissero on the details of what's going on with Davante Adams, who looks like the Raiders are acquiring him from the Packers. All right.
Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is RichiRichEh of the MHRT Network. Over to my left is Alex Givens of the Arrowhead Addict. Directly below, this is getting so much easier to point now, is Coach Defense.
Got it down.
Of the Lockdown Defense Podcast Network. And last but not least, I almost had it, is Captain Jack. He's got it down.
I got it for you, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys
those
are
of
like
you don't
that
realize,
See, I want to point there, but instead of pointing there, I point there. That's all you have to do.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what you think.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. For those who don't realize, when you're on camera like this, everything is actually
I want to point here, but I point there.
Yeah,
and I want to say goodbye, or I want to say hello to the schmuck up there. I can do that.
That's easy. That part's easy. Yeah. Just follow your smug nose.
Yeah.
There it
is. So breaking news just before the show came in, specific to those who are Raiders fans. Foster Moreau, as part of a routine physical, apparently has tested positive for, I believe it's Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thank you for pulling that up. I have also confirmed that after digging it up myself, that is in fact correct. And he was down with the New Orleans Saints going through a routine physical, and they uncovered the cancer diagnosis. And he has made not only tough news, but a difficult decision to step away from football as a result. On behalf of everyone on the show, I wish him all the best, speedy recovery, and I hope he gets back to full health as soon as possible. He was a very, very good player for your Las Vegas Raiders, Cap.
Yeah, I tell you, and I was actually kind of surprised that Foster had not re-signed, but I guess that his maybe his asking price was a little bit what not the Raiders wanted, but we will get to tight ends later on for the Raiders because it is a full tight end room there. But I had the pleasure of meeting Foster's mom and dad in Jacksonville this past season, and what a great lady and dad he is. So blessings to Foster and his family as he fights the disease, and hopefully it'll work out, and it's unfortunate, and I actually noticed that he was in Nollins for the sign, because again, he's an LSU kid, and it would have just made great sense for him to go from LSU to New Orleans and be back with some quarterback that the Raiders used to have on their team. I can't remember, but but
come
again,
on.
all kidding aside, in that respect, it's unfortunate, but blessings to Foster, and let's all hope and pray for good things to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
You just hope they caught
agree.
it early too. I mean, it's not a fun battle, but I feel like as long as it's caught pretty early, it's a lot more positive outcomes than not.
Agreed. And you also have to look at, the physical health. He's obviously in pretty spectacular physical condition and shape, which often, does help a little bit through treatment as well, which is a good thing. Wow, I didn't know that one. I'll have to verify your source.
You got traded?
No, but I will make an
Package
announcement
deal.
about who I'm signing with at the end of the show, maybe. Who I'm signing. I didn't get traded, but I did make a signing.
Oh, so you were a free agent. You got picked up. Okay.
I got picked up, baby.
Okay.
That way.
Very nice.
And
So,
not by the Bunny Ranch that's already making your play for Jimmy Garoppolo.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that guy? I'm sure you've seen that.
The Bunny Ranch?
Yeah.
I got HBO, man. Come on.
No. There's a I guess the young ladies that are workers there were out in front with basically "We love Jimmy Garoppolo," and then all of them, had enough letters. I'm surprised that they they could spell it, but B, that
he's probably been there before. Let's be real. I mean,
I'm sorry, what was that?
He's probably been there
now
before.
because he's talked about the damn buzzing, so I can barely hear you guys. Hopefully that made it a little nicer for you. I don't know if the buzzing is prevalent, but I did put it on that speaker over there, so the buzzing is minute as much as possible. If it's still there, F you, it's the best I can do, okay? Because I can barely hear you.
Well,
yeah.
Well, Captain, to your credit, you are right. They did not spell it. Jimmy G was there and spelt it on them for them.
I'm sure
he
Jimmy
was the one
G
that drew the
spelled
letters.
a lot of things on them that night, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we're off, baby.
Right.
Done.
Jimmy G spot. Yeah, that's it. 8 minutes in. All right.
There you go.
Hey, it's not a show without some
Yeah.
double entendre that's racing on, the risque, baby. There you go. And the best thing is, he didn't get injured so far.
So far. Only 8 months to go.
Well, I don't know. There could be some muscle strain.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably see that
Yeah.
tomorrow.
So,
Jimmy G out indefinitely pulled hammy.
Questionable with a hammy.
Yeah.
In
Not
OTAs.
enough electrolytes.
Dehydration.
Someone calling CSI.
There you go.
So as we're looking ahead to the upcoming season, guys, we're in that odd time where it's right between free agency and the draft, where we start looking ahead to really seeing the polished versions of all the various prospects. And this is also the time where you're just getting a whole bunch of nonsense that's going to be thrown out now. You're going to start seeing, certain guys are going to be. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, so all that crap, right? So, anyways, we're going to start breaking down the various rosters now, where we've kind of solidified ourselves after free agency. Everyone signed who was supposed to sign, with our various teams. And you're starting to really see, at least as I'm looking at the Broncos roster, some pretty apparent glaring holes. And I think the rest of us are probably all looking and seeing similar things. So I'm going to quickly throw over to you, Alex, and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, where you guys are at. There's been some recent news as well that you may want to also cover in terms of, yet another player that has been a bit of a staple on the roster and was potentially even seen as a Tyreek Hill replacement, no longer in there. So now would also be a reasonable time for you to plug your up and coming appearance, I think, as well.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah. Well, we will get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as for the Chiefs, in terms of kind of through, the initial wave of free agency, I feel like they've been relatively quiet for the amount of holes I think are on the roster, given the players and key contributors that left to go other places. I mean, last week we had Orlando Brown go to Cincy. Juan Thornhill, starting safety, went to the Browns. Hardman today, like a couple hours ago, went to the Jets, which is Richie was getting at. I will be on the Jet Central channel some point this evening to discuss that. So I'm not going to bag on McCole. I like McCole Hardman, and I wish him the best. And I wish he could have had a little better time in KC, but hey, he is a freak athlete. But so I think grand scheme, Chiefs have kind of lost a lot of good contributors, but I think have, for the most part, done what they can in terms of where they're at with the cap, which Jack, I believe right now they're right at a little under 10, right at 10 million with the Mahomes restructure. So, I mean, I know that there's some move coming because they wouldn't have Mahomes restructure and do that if there wasn't something in the works. But, obviously, I think with the free agents that were available, they made the splashy moves they needed to fill some of the holes in the roster. Got Charles Omenihu after moving on from Frank Clark. But to that same tone, that guy, while he is an athletic freak and has some good pass rush numbers from last year, and played on a great defense, he's only started 10 games in 4 seasons. Between the Houston Texans and the 49ers. So, it's a big gamble to say, hey, this guy's going to replace the production, especially the postseason production that we get out of Frank Clark. So I think that there's still moves to be had in terms of the defensive line, especially edge. Will that be the draft? I don't know, but they signed Juwan Taylor. It's another splashy, signing. That was the guy they picked up before Orlando Brown even got a contract anywhere else. And, I'm still kind of up in the air on that because it's like the rumblings now where he's going to switch to left tackle, which, may be the case. But they're also, still as the roster's currently set with who they signed, they still don't have a right tackle. Unless they're planning on it being, the Niang or Kennard, the rookie they drafted last year, which may be the case, but jury's still out on what they're doing with the offensive line. But I do think that more moves are going to happen there, especially, on the edge. Then they signed, Mike Edwards, who's, I think, going to be a nice complementary piece to the secondary. He's like a pretty solid ball hawking safety. And I don't think they signed him to like a $3 million deal. So, he's going to be kind of that veteran presence to rotate in and probably play in nickel packages. But he has, I looked it up. He has, 7 career picks in 3 years and 3 pick sixes. So, a guy that has those ball hockey skills to play on a defense that you would presume is going to be in a lot of passing down situations later in games. Could turn out to be a pretty good signing. And then the last one, which kind of surprised me, came out of nowhere, was Coach's boy, Drew Tranquill, signing with the Chiefs. It's kind of a head scratching. Like at first, it's kind of a head scratching signing to me because
it's not head scratching. You know what it is.
They don't need him, it just seems, and I haven't seen too much financial info on what he signed, but it's a 1-year deal. And kind of, as I said to you before the show, Richie, it seemed to be a very quiet free agent market in terms of teams, players really really capitalizing on their profits, right? I mean, I talked about Dalton Schultz was all heading into this. You heard he was going to get a huge multi-year deal. I think Treadquill was kind of in that combo for, being pretty high up in tackles last year.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought some of these players would cash in
CJJC from the safety from Philly was the other guy that was
yeah. And you're seeing all these people sign 1-year deals that are like prove it to some degree. So I think the Chiefs were smart to capitalize if that's how the market's going, to sell to this guy. Hey, sign this 1-year deal. We're hopefully are as successful as we've been in years past, and you can go get your bag next year. But with that being said, I doubt Drew Tranquill would sign with KC if he didn't like what they said they were going to use him for. So I think he's going to be that nickel linebacker. And once I kind of looked into his stats, he's a pretty great blitzer and pass rusher for being a linebacker. So I think that's going to add some versatility to how the Chiefs play defense and how Spags likes to bring pressure, and especially when you have a guy who I think had like 5 sacks last year, and 5 sacks and 15 total pressures, and a guy who can also keep out in passing down packages. So they've made up to this point, I'd say, the right moves are with where the market was at and who was available, and haven't overspent and let guys go that they might have paid a little bit more for to quote unquote run it back. Because to that degree, like I mentioned, Orlando Brown, Juan Thornhill also lost Juju to the Patriots. Andrew Wiley, who's the starting right tackle, went to Washington. Sanders, who was a pretty low key but pretty solid contributor on the defensive interior, went to New Orleans. Michael Burton, fullback, went to Denver. You're thinking Casey has a fullback. Yes, they do, or they did. So that's and haven't signed one. I don't know if they will. And then Ronald Jones is the last one to sign elsewhere to this point. And yeah, he was on KC, but he went to Dallas. So still a lot of holes out there, but they have 12 picks as I think it's currently set going into the draft. So if they keep the presumption they're keeping all that, it's not going to be hard to fill those voids. But will they be respectable filling of the shoes, or just getting rookies in there and trying to catch lightning in a bottle again? Which they were able to do to some degree last year, but I still think that there's moves that need to be made before the draft, and I think that seeing the restructuring of Mahomes is definitely a big indication that that's happening. Do you want me to talk about the what I think they need to fill now, or is that right?
Yeah. Like, what are your gaps as they stand now, based on where you're at?
Yeah. The biggest gap that I think, I'm sure everyone who's not a Chiefs fan, who just follows the league and like league news will know that everyone, the biggest gap in the national media's eyes is 1A, a number one wide receiver. So the most rumblings, which I do think is a significant gap. That's not the biggest gap to me that they need to fill. But we are seeing the rumblings that they're in on Odell and in on D-Hop, or potentially both. But then I'm pretty sure Odell Beckham was like subtweeting how cheap the Chiefs were being and offering him. So I doubt he ends up there. But the D-Hop thing's really picking up steam, or at least seems to be on what you could call picking up steam on Twitter. But that seems to be what everyone thinks is the biggest need, in my opinion. And maybe biased as a former offensive lineman myself, but I think that's the biggest gap they need to ensure is filled up. Whether, like I said, they're moving Taylor to left tackle and go with that experiment, cool. But I think that they need to get another veteran tackle in case that doesn't pan out, or one of the rookies on the right side doesn't pan out. I would like for them to sign, like they did 2 years ago, they signed Kyle Long, who I think sat out for a year, but still came in respectable. Was one of the better guards in the league till he got hurt, and he, unfortunately got hurt before he could do anything. But I mean, that was the mindset, was he was there in case something didn't pan out with Trey Smith, who, turned out to be a pretty solid right guard, but, he was a 7th round pick. So to me, that's the biggest thing they need to fill, or I would like to see them fill going into the draft. Even if they're drafting a tackle early, I still think you need someone, especially with some of these older guys that have been released, and I think you could sign on the cheap. Like your Taylor Lewans, Taylor Lewan and Donovan Smith are the two that come to mind. Both 30 plus years old, pretty, well-known tackles who are kind of on the downward slide of where they're at, or injury prone. So I think those could be cheap options. There's also Isaiah Wynn, who's I think a free agent, even though he's not on like Sport Track or anything, but I'm pretty sure the Patriots are letting him go, shop around or whatever. So, those are some options. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot else out there in terms of people that I think would have viable starting experience in case Jawan Taylor can't play left tackle. Because I mean, pay the guy $80 million. If he can't play left tackle, he's at least solid enough at right tackle. So I'd hope that there's some contingency plan in place for that side of the ball. And then the next biggest one outside of that, the receiver issue, which I'll talk about last, but I think they need a veteran edge rush presence, just to go with the youthful revolt, I guess, they've been doing at the edge. I mean, they have Karlaftis spent a 1st round pick on, got rid of Frank Clark, who was, I think, the oldest edge rush guy they had, and Carlos Dunlap's also a free agent. So it seems like they're going younger. Also, Menahue's 25. So a lot of younger, inexperienced guys who are at least projected to play bigger roles or contribute more. So I think that they do need a veteran, like Carlos Dunlap or Melvin Ingram. They've had a guy like that almost every year to kind of provide some production, but also not be expected to carry the load, so to speak. So, I know, Richie, you talked about Clowney, last week, which I still think he could be a viable option. It's been a relatively slow market, and then I went and looked at the free agents at the edge, and I was kind of like shocked at how many dudes were still available. You're like, I mean, those guys are not bad. And I think, look at, like, the biggest one to me is Ngakoue, with the Colts. I mean, that dude's still a free agent. Capt knows he was a Raider, 2 years ago. He's been on 5 different teams or 4 different teams, and he's had at least 9.5 sacks every year.
He's a very specific scheme fit, though.
Yeah, but I mean, again, if you're getting a guy, he's only 27, but so you're getting a guy that, it all comes down to money and where that. But so I've tried to look at guys that I think would at least with how the market's been going with players like Dalton Schultz and Drew Tranquill and these other guys taking 1-year deals. I think that kind of broadens the horizons for the types of players the Chiefs can bring in. I think he could be a good option. I talked about there's Bud Dupree, Leonard Floyd, Robert Quinn. All of these guys are older, but still produce at a decently high level. I mean, Robert Quinn had 20 sacks 2 years ago. So, you get someone like that on a relatively team-friendly 1-year deal that they can still go in and produce, but you don't need them to be that person. I think that will help tremendously in the kind of youth progression they've been trying to do on their defense. Then the last, they definitely need interior D linemen, but there's not a whole lot of, it's kind of a similar theme with the interior as well as the edge. It's just like a lot of older people, older guys that are been cut or cap casualties. Like Calais Campbell, I think would be my one that I would love to fill the gap, just because that dude's
been tied to the Broncos too.
He's 6'9". He's 6'9", dude. He's like he's just not an average human, and he's still good for being a big ass dude that his limbs should not be healthy at all right now. And it just kind of amazes me that he still, gets at least 5 sacks, I think. So, but they definitely are going to fill the interior of the D-line because outside of Chris Jones is really, and they signed Derek and Nandi back. So, I mean, they got some familiarity there, but those are the only two guys really on the roster right now. And then kind of the last one, I had a few more, but the last big one, I do think that they are going to go with, getting that 1A or 1B type receiver. I do kind of think that the rumblings, you're going to see him trade for D-Hop, and I think it's just kind of waiting to get the Cardinals to realize like they're not getting a second round pick for him. So I think it's just kind of a waiting game for the value to go down, but or maybe they sign Odell. But I think that with all the reporting and rumors of them meeting, going to Odell stuff and things like that, like they're going to make a move for someone to be that 1B type guy. I mean, everything I've seen is that projected for Kadarius Toney to have a much larger role and maybe even kind of step into the Tyreek-esque role, which is all great and fine. But Capt knows. Capt told me, I think the first thing we're talking about him getting traded. He doesn't stay healthy. I mean, hell of a ball player, like elusive as hell, and can do stuff with a football. Not a lot of people can, but can't stay on the field. And I think that's a huge gamble to go into the season, expecting that to, go to fruition and not kind of have a contingency plan. So I see them getting someone. I wanted it to be Adam Thielen, but for whatever reason, he thinks the Panthers are about to win the Super Bowl, which, good for him. I see him making that type of move to get a veteran guy. And maybe it's not a D-Hop, it's a DJ Chark or, Robbie or whatever his name is, Anderson or one of those kind of guys.
Chosen Anderson. Chosen Anderson.
You got to get him. And I think that they're going to draft more receivers too. But I see them adding, in terms of free agency, I see them adding an edge rusher, another edge offensive line player, whether it be right or left tackle, and then another wide receiver, either through free agency or trade before we get to the draft. And that's it.
Fair enough.
And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
So, who do you think out of all those position groups? I mean, with only $10 million in cap, you still have to reserve some of that cap space, probably between probably $5 million. So you probably have about $5 million of that 10 available to you for out of that 10, you have like $5 million probably for free agency, right? Because you have quite a number of picks. You got to kind of allocate that. What would you say is the number one position group that you could see your team going after?
Number one, I would say is probably, they're probably prioritizing wide receiver, we're probably getting DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham and how they could fit that in with other pieces they need, because that's going to, just the way the game's played and what's valued. I mean, that's going to be the more costly one than going to sign someone like Calais Campbell, who's 37 and who will be sitting there until, up to training camp and bring him in on a veteran minimum. So I think that's probably what they're prioritizing. I think they should be prioritizing I would be more in spending on someone like an Ngakoue, or, if you got to pay Ngakoue, $6 million to come be a veteran edge presence on top of the other guys, I would be more for that, because I think that the way Andy Reid schemes and, Patrick Mahomes' ability, I think that you don't need to break the bank for a DeAndre Hopkins to have the same level of production that they could have. He lost Tyreek Hill this last year, was supposed to fall off a cliff, and he put up the same numbers, if not more, better numbers. So I think that you could go cheaper route receiver and, like they kind of did last year, and sign 2-3 guys and hope that, at least one of them's a viable option, rather than, trade draft capital and have to restructure a $34 million cap hit deal for DeAndre Hopkins, who, while I still think is a very very solid wide receiver and definitely up there in terms of talented wide receivers in the league. You know, time's not on his side, and to give up, you know, a 4th round pick and then have to take someone on who's got 2 years left, and I think it's a $32 million cap hit, you know, and he doesn't have to restructure. You would hope that he would, but you know, he doesn't have to. So like that could be a huge game. Like they're not going to make that trade if he wouldn't, but yeah, I mean that's who I think that they're prioritizing.
So I actually think this is I agree. I think it's a good time to transition over to the Las Vegas Raiders and Jimmy Playboy Garoppolo and what they're going to do down there in the Vegas. Captain, just before we get into it, there's been a comment from one of the Raiders fans here on the show. I think this is that might be a somewhat of an accurate number in terms of the
I don't know.
Player. No, but you have to remember is that they're also picking 7th in the draft. So you have to look at the sliding scale of where they're at in their draft pick. The higher in the first round you go, the bigger that cap number hits right off the top as a result of where you're picking. So that's probably a somewhat of an accurate number given the fact that you're picking, I think, 7th, if I'm not mistaken, in the draft.
And D-Generation, you got to listen about him as long as I say, dude, and champs, baby.
You have to remember he is Mr. Smug. And so, of course, he would say that.
And I'm also a lawyer, so I can talk for as long as I need to here. So I need to filibuster and go for another hour. Objection. Erroneous.
Now, Captain, that would have been far more effective if there was like a bottle of rum or something in your hand and you said, I object, and that would have been great. The fact you have to find it is part of the problem.
Where'd that go? What did I do Saturday?
I have it here somewhere. Give me a minute, you bastard. I'll find it.
He brought out the Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew I had some, damn it.
It's $4.8 million for the first round pick, FYI. $4.8 million for the first round pick.
For 7, like
7, yeah, 7. It's $7 million for number 1, and it slides from down from there.
We all got the 7th. We got the 3rd and the 4th, and that's the 7th together.
Wow. Yeah, 4.8. 7.4 is the top. 4.8 is the 7th pick. 4.8
right,
million.
But that's exactly it, right? So you got to think when your one pick is costing almost $5 million.
Yep.
Like that's
you got 12 picks. Yeah, and you got 12 picks.
Bam, right off the top.
Yeah, good. That's about that number's probably about accurate. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably pretty dead on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So now, Ed, I have to ask: was there an underlying comment somewhere in there? When you said bottle, did you mean something else?
Well, you see what his response is, so hey, there it is.
And Richie, that's directed at you, you bastard, because Ed would never say such things about me.
Ah, okay. Stirring the pot. Richie stirring the pot.
It's such a big pot, I got to use both hands, baby.
There you go. There you go.
Anyway.
So, Captain,
let's talk about them Raiders. The Raiders.
I was somewhat prepared for this. I actually went to 2 sites and got all our transactions. Then I went like, oh, holy crap, they're right here too.
Stand up, Cap. Take a bow.
Take a bow. You did research. Oh, damn it.
Do you have any Vaseline?
Some Banaka?
Hey, where's the ovation for that, man? Hell.
We need one of those. Yeah.
Now that is the literal definition of turn the other cheek.
There you go.
Ew.
There you go.
There we go.
I need a drum beat on my soundboard. I need a drum beat. But boom.
It was so hot in Los Angeles today. How hot was it? Come on, man. You got to get into the whole. Okay. Being prepared, not an Eagle Scout, but I did have every required merit badge for Eagle Scout. So, I will say that I was a Life Scout. And don't get me started on the bastard that kept me from being an Eagle Scout. It was my Scoutmaster. May he fucking rotten. Ooh, sorry, rotten.
He took you in the shed, didn't he?
Oh.
No, he didn't. No, but
I had to.
He put his own two sons in front of me as far as making sure that they got their stuff done and kept blowing me off, and not in that way, but just, disregarding me.
Gotta be specific,
Okay. Disregarding me, and I finally said, you know what? Screw you, buddy. I got babes to do instead of merit badges. So that's why I left.
You could take your Eagle Scout and shove it.
That's right. I got your Eagle Scout right here, bastard. Anyway, back to point. The Raider fans were like really, really pissed off when they didn't re-sign some guy that was their quarterback for 9 years. They were also very, very pissed off that they lost what many were calling a top 3 tight end in football. And I say to you, well, we got Jimmy G-Spot, who when healthy, is a damn good quarterback. And I think we went over that last show.
Yep. Agreed.
By the way, because I wasn't able to do it last time, I did get the...
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
Nice.
Honestly, that's an important part of the whole, like, that has to be somewhat of a permanent thing from time to time. That's spectacular.
The unfortunate thing is that I can't, I had to put them over my real glasses because I can't, there's no prescription. So until I get a prescription in them, I got to just do this.
Oh, that's spectacular. Go for it.
Anyway, I missed it last show. I did do it for the Academy Awards show because I was in my Chiefs jersey, Charlestown Chiefs, before you get excited there.
I saw it. I have social media.
Okay. Which was, for a movie. And then, of course, I had my glasses as well.
Yeah, Slapshot.
Anyway,
the answer to this question is no.
We get a good quarterback. And everybody's lamenting the fact that we lost a highly skilled, oft-injured tight end. But I say nay, my friends. Nay, my friends. If you want a highly skilled, oft-injured tight end, I present to you O.J. What's-his-nose that used to play for the Bucs that now plays for us. He was from Alabama.
O.J. Howard.
O.J. Howard, thank you.
O.J. the Juice Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, O.J. Howard, who, like I said, when he is when he's there on the field, is very, very adept at doing everything that Waller did. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. He plays like a wide receiver. But again,
he had 30 fantasy points week 1.
Yeah, he did, and that was his plat.
And then he didn't hear from him.
And then he probably had negative points for the rest of the season.
That was a long neck Davis Mills.
Anyway, so for those that are saying, well, we need that threat, a tight end that can play well and is oft injured, O.J. Howard, guys, we got him. But that's not even the best thing. Okay, is we actually, in my estimation, got probably one of the best 1 or 2 tight ends that were available in free agency. Okay, and that's Austin Hooper. The guy did not have a good year last year because he didn't have anybody really throwing him the ball. But Austin Hooper is a all-pro tight end, and now he is on the Raiders. So the Raiders got rid of Waller, but they got a very capable person in O.J. Howard when available. They got Austin Hooper, who is a very, very good tight end. Plus, they re-signed Jesper Horsted, so they brought in a guy who already knows the system. And Horsted is one of those people that can block and catch, kind of like that Saubert guy that somebody is really, really, really hot on.
That's right.
As a man crush on.
Anyway, so we went over that. So that's some of the positive things. Again, Jimmy G Spot signed. The Raiders obviously have needed help in the back four, which is another movie that Jimmy's probably going to be in pretty soon. That's the rim shot, not a rim job, a rim shot. Okay, there you go. They did went out and signed re-signed Faison, or sorry, they signed Faison and they re-signed Teamer. Again, what coach is saying, they like the people that used to play for the Chargers. I think they signed them in spite of that, coach. In spite of that they played well.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, just like Tranquil going to the Chiefs, it doesn't hurt that they have intel.
Yeah, that's good. Which is why somebody signed Jarrett Stidham for $10 million over 2 years. But I digress. Anyway, Faison and Teamer, they also signed Marcus Epps of the Eagles, a very capable safety. And today they went out and signed Jaquan Johnson, who is a dang good, when in college, University of Miami product that hasn't really hit that capabilities yet, but I think will be a damn good acquisition. So you got Johnson and Epps, Faison and Teamer in the back area. And then David Long, who is quite a capable cornerback, younger, they just re-signed him today. So they said, okay, well, we still need that number 2 or 3 receiver, okay? Aha. So those that were waiting for what the Raiders were going to do with receiver, Cam Sims is that stretch the field guy that can run on a dime and can run underneath the dime. The guy that runs a 9 pattern all day. I think he's like 6'6" and has like 4 something speed. Just not utilized well as a commander. So he was one of their receivers they signed. Plus they signed 2 receivers that are New England products, Jacoby Myers and Philip Dorsett. So they know the system as well. So they've done some things along that line for receiver. Now on defense, the signing of Jordan Willis is kind of under the radar. Kid's got a motor, and it's played well. He's from Kansas State, but again, they signed him in spite of that, Alex, in spite of the fact that he played for Kansas State. No comment. Never mind.
Is that supposed to mean something, though? Kansas State is totally different than Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
two different states, to be honest.
It was a dig, okay?
Well, he was on San Francisco, though.
Shut up. I object.
I'm just stating the evidence as a whole. Make sure everyone has a clear picture here of what's going on.
Far be from me, I think he's more of a D end than a tackle. I was looking at his. He's like 270 and 6'4". To me, that sounds like a D end vice a D tackle. So they still are looking for some beef up front. Although they re-signed Jerry, knocked the ball out of your hand. Tillery, again, another one of Coach's favorite at the D tackle position. I went over Meyer, dude. Yep.
Lost Perryman, though.
You know what? Lost Perryman. That's such is life. Yeah, Jack, 4-3 DM. Thanks again there, Jack. The probably under the radar, which is something that will be a thing that they broke up the band, okay? They got rid of their long snapper and signed a guy by the name of Bobenmoyer, who maybe our friend Richie can
Broncos. Yeah.
Richie can talk about.
This one time at band camp?
From what I understand is a very capable long snapper, but they did get rid of Trent Sieg, so the band is got a new drummer. So we'll see.
What a
how
life,
it
dude!
works
$1 million
out.
the long snap.
Yeah, we are. What are we doing? What are we doing wrong with our lives? What are we doing wrong with our lives? We in the wrong profession.
It's not an off season until you can sign a mystery writer. So to top it all off, they signed Mickey Spillane. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Mickey, it's Robert Spillane, a linebacker. One of those guys that can, he's a linebacker.
Who is Mickey Spillane? Hold on. I gotta know. Is Mickey Spillane some author?
You don't know who Mickey Spillane is? My God, you're young and dumb.
I don't know how to read. I'm from Missouri.
Well, and you're a lawyer. That says everything about the law.
I just gotta argue.
Anyway, Robert Mickey Spillane, linebacker, guy can very good tackler, not the best in pass defense. I said, well, hell, he'll come right in on the Raiders because that's what we've had for like the last 25 years. A linebacker that can tackle, but is not really good at defending the pass. Some re-signings, which obviously the Raiders are adept at. But I'm still kind of figuring out what they're going to do at right tackle because not to outdo themselves, they did re-sign Brandon. Oh my God, swinging doors, Parker. I don't know when this guy is not going to be. I don't see it.
Glossy photos.
He's got photos of McDaniels with a little blizzard.
Yeah, glossy photos.
I mean, they re-signed Parker. They did sign Jermaine Illuminor again, which I like. I think that Illuminor and Mumford, they liked what they saw last year in that. There's some issues with guard, and they did re-sign. Is it Natane Mute?
Yeah, he's good. I like him a lot.
Yeah, the guy is a big son of a bitch. Let's just call him that. And so he's a good.
My dad calls guys like that built like a brick. You know what house? Like he is.
I just call him beef.
He is massive. In fact,
straight
just
beef.
For all the Raiders fans, on the Broncos, they basically interviewed the entirety of the offensive and defensive line from the Broncos. They had one-off interviews over the course of the year. Every single person in the locker room, when they were asked who's the strongest guy on the team, without fail, every single one of them answered without hesitation Natane Moody. Like there was zero hesitation. They're like, the dude is a freaking tank.
I was going to say, they got a tank.
Yeah, like the dude's a tank.
They got a tank.
Is that a tank?
Is that a tank?
Yeah, he's just a tank.
Tank in space, dude.
And
come on.
And actually, against the Raiders, and I'm not surprised you guys signed him, they threw him in at fullback, and he threw your interior defensive lineman back into the end zone by about 5 feet for a touchdown.
I do it.
And so I bet that's
shout out
on
to
like,
Refrigerated Perry.
Yeah, that's like that. I bet you that's on like the big board film type stuff that the Raiders have to say we remember him. So if we can get him, then we're going to get him, right? And so I can see that happening. He's a spectacular player. He does have shorter arms though, which makes him a bit of a liability and a bit of a liability in some of the yeah.
So I'm gonna mix the two of these, some iced tea and whatever the hell this is. And I'm gonna celebrate the first phase of free agency. Now, I know you're gonna ask this, Richie, so I'm gonna beat you to the buzzer. What have we not signed? And I said it last week. What did I say was the most important next signing that the Raiders must have? Let's see if anybody was paying attention on the panel.
Tackle.
Inside linebacker.
Corner. Safety.
You only got 6 positions left.
Punter.
Quality control coach.
The water
I
boy.
forgot.
Backup friggin' quarterback. I said it. I said it.
Yeah.
And you guys weren't.
You're all
paying
about to get Cam Newton.
No, I don't want Cam.
I'm better than 32 other guys.
Ain't 32 guys better than me.
Our
The
Carson
point
Wentz,
is-
he's
the
out
point
there.
is,
Matt Ryan.
That's still a very large question mark. A very large question mark. Because right now, Chase Garbers is our backup quarterback. Aside from the quarterback that we're going to draft, he who shall remain nameless.
Tell McDaniel call his daddy and tell him send him Bailey Zappi.
Actually,
They don't want to
what?
give up Zaps, dude.
You know what? I wouldn't
You
mind
guys-
Bailey Zappi except for one thing. He doesn't know Daniel's system because he was a rookie when McDaniels was our coach.
True.
Do you guys
Actually,
think these
Cam
play
Newton's not a bad option for you guys, to be quite
But do
honest.
you guys think like Carson? I'm looking at the available ones right now, right? And there's like Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. I mean, those are the only two I would say have been backups before. You think that either one of those guys is going to take a deal to go do that? I mean,
If you allow me, Mr. Smug, I do have a name.
I have
Okay,
another name
perfect.
for you.
Okay, I don't know if he's still unsigned, but I'd take a flyer on Taylor Heineke.
He already signed.
with
He's
Atlanta.
already signed.
Okay,
So, Coach,
that was my name. I'm
hold
sorry.
on. Here's my name. You ready for it?
Chase Daniels.
No. Phillip Rivers.
Oh,
Cocaine Blaine Gabbert.
cocaine Blaine.
The news is that Phillip Rivers is interested to come back into the NFL, and he's got veteran presence. He's had the ability to start in the league before. He could potentially help coach up a younger guy as well, who you're likely going to draft this year. In my opinion, that's actually not that bad of an option for you guys, given the fact that Jimmy G has got a history of being injured, but not when he was in New England. So you have a veteran guy that can help work with your quarterback. You have Jimmy G, who's a talented quarterback. And if you draft a younger guy, why not have both veteran guys help coach him up so he can be your future?
Okay, thanks for the promo of a quarterback that needs time away from his 19 kids, and that's why he was playing football.
Right.
Because he had 19 kids.
Yes.
And he's like, you know what? It was kind of good during like 7-8 months out of the year. I didn't have to deal with these bastards.
Yeah.
No. Actually, the name was mentioned. There are indications that Blaine Gabbert is being looked at as going to be the backup.
Cocaine Blaine, dude, he belongs in Vegas, man. That guy deserves to be in Vegas.
Throwing lines off a lady's rears.
Hey, he saved some people from drowning. The jet ski.
Was that him? Was that him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a Mizzou guy.
Oh, okay.
So I'm all for it. Both Mizzou quarterbacks, Chase Daniel and Blaine Gabbert, I think have made a lot of money not playing. So, you know,
That they
someone
have.
to look up to.
Yes.
Yeah, again, we're in the wrong business. Like they should have a course in college say how to be a backup quarterback in the NFL.
How to be a backup punter, you know?
Yeah, how to be a long snapper.
Well, and like we signed Bobenmoyer, so we got our long snap. Okay. Point being is that is there glaring needs? Honestly, you're gonna laugh when I say this. No, the Raiders in the free agency has signed bits and pieces everywhere. Linebacker, they replaced a linebacker that can't cover with another linebacker who can't cover, but younger. Okay, and not as injury riddled. Okay, they signed 2 corners and 2 safeties. Why? Because we need corners and safeties. They signed wide receivers to go with that at that number 2 receiver position 2 and 3. So we got 2, 3, and 4, and that's not even counting Renfro if he still was there. Remains to be seen. We signed tackles back. We signed our guard Mute. Okay, so we've signed players along the line. Like I said, we needed another D lineman to go push. We signed Tillery. We needed another guy to play defensive end on the opposite side of Crosby. We signed Willis. So we've signed bits and pieces, and I think RichiRichEh said it last week. The way that McDaniels and what I think Ziegler is doing is they're signing pieces. They're signing cogs.
Yep.
They're signing a little bit across the board because it's not the individual, it's the components of a team. And I think that is the positive thing. Yeah, we still need people, and we'll do them in the second phase of free agency and in the draft. But I'm very happy with what we've gotten so far because we've gotten guys with the positive attitude that have ability, that are, not real old. Maybe they just got off their first contract and now they were getting ready to perform. Like Epps and Long, for example, they were coming along and they played a lot of games this past year, showed what they could do. So they're getting into their, near the apex. They're showing up. They're ascending. So again, are these guys all pros? Well, one of them is in Hooper, but are they individual pieces that will be well for a team in that vein? Yeah, I think so. So I like what we've had so far, and it remains to be seen what else we get. And again, the number one signing that we need is backup QB. That's the only thing we don't have on the roster right now.
And I think given where you're looking and what you're looking for, I bet you probably have a guy already locked up. And that guy is probably not wanting to come in because they're a veteran likely, and they don't want to go through OTAs. They have an agreement in place, and I bet you're going to see that directly after the draft, where the Raiders will bring in their guy, and it'll be basically on the assumption that they, are basically a classroom guy for them until they're needed. Because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a Gabbert. They're looking for someone in that vein who can step in and start if Jimmy G gets hurt. But they're basically going to come in with demands to say, I'll sign with you guys, but I'm not doing training camp. Or I'll be there for training camp, but the rookie that you're going to bring into the draft, he's going to play as the number 2, and I will coach him up, and I'll learn the playbook, and I'll be ready for day 1. I could see something like that happening, right? Like, as in, I'll be the second coach on the field to help your new guy out. You're going to pay me to be the second coach on the field so you guys can focus on other things. And I think that's probably like what you're going to see from the Raiders. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing either. Like, I'm not even saying that as a knock. I'm saying that's not a bad thing. That's actually a pretty smart move from an NFL team to try to, really elevate one of the most important positions on the team to kind of get themselves to a better spot. I think that's a pretty smart move. So, moving on, I'm going to start jumping.
I take bow, but you don't want to see my ass again.
Yeah.
What now?
No, we do not want to ask you any more questions. Come on, someone tell me they understood that reference was.
Oh yeah,
I got it.
We're back.
That's why I gave you the.
No, but there's no comments in the chat here. I thought at least one person would say, I see what you did there. But I'm going to jump into the Broncos. I'm going to start going into where we are at right now for my Denver Broncos. There have been many Broncos questions earlier in the show about our roster, where we stand, and all those things. And I wanted to thank all of you Broncos fans for leaving those questions for us. To start things off, I think the Broncos are interestingly positioned, but I think that we have intentionally left certain position groups very weak. And that is very concerning because it basically tips your hand in the draft. Like right now, you're not signing anybody unless you're going to rush out and do something very quickly just in advance of the draft. So we basically have what we have until the draft. And I think that when you look at the Broncos roster, there's about 3, maybe 4 positions that are just absolutely smack you over the head. You're not where you need to be. So we made a bunch of free agency moves. The one position group that everyone keeps on talking about us trading, I think is still one of our strongest position groups. And that's why we have a lot of wide receivers. Most of them are pretty good. And I think we're going to get a fair amount of interest in a lot of them. It'll be interesting to see what happens on draft day. My opinion, for what it's worth, given the fact that it's free, you can take that for what it's worth too, is I think that we're going to have probably one of our wide receivers get traded on draft day. The way I see it is it'll be either Cortland Sutton, it will be KJ Hamler, or Jerry Jeudy.
I hope it's Sutton or Hamler because those are the two best guys you got.
Yeah, they keep asking a first rounder though for Jeudy.
Well, I disagree. I think Tim Patrick's the best wide receiver on the roster. And the reason why I say that is,
other than Mr. Automatic, Sutton and KJ is your best wide receiver that's available.
Tim Patrick is the dude that killed you guys every single game.
I said other than – wait a second. Whoa. You understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I could feel the frustration.
No, there's a buzzing sound underneath and I can't hear you.
I turn the speakers off when I'm not talking. That's why I did it. And listen, Mr. Automatic.
Just start writing it out.
Notwithstanding, your best wide receivers that are available are Sutton and KJ Hamler. Thought ended. Speakers quit.
No, I agree. And then, but the thing that a lot of people don't remember from last season is we had a guy by the name of Brandon Johnson in preseason who lit it up. And then he got hurt in the last game and then came back at the end of the season and really started to show out a little bit. And he's a guy that you could see replace someone like a KJ Hamler, other wide receiver that's on the field. And so, and then we have a guy like Jalen Virgil, for example, who really showed out with some deep touchdown passes from Russell Wilson near the end of the season. And so I truly believe that we have some really interesting, talented guys in the back end of our wide receiver room who I think are lesser known, but will start to show out in a better offensive system because Sean Payton, he schemes guys open as opposed to trying to rely on timing and other things. So I think it'll be a much different offensive scheme we're seeing this year from what we saw last year. And you have a more competent head coach who's going to keep the locker room a little bit more level-headed because he's done it before and he's done it over a long period of time. And so I think one of our wide receivers is likely getting traded on draft day. And I think that's why you keep on hearing these rumors that Jerry Jeudy's on the trade block, Cortland Sutton is on the trade block. And I think that both of those names are likely true. But I think that the problem is that most people aren't considering where the real capital comes in is when you trade the guys for actual current draft picks in the upcoming draft. I could see our GM having traded guys come draft day. So anyways, that's my general thought. When we're looking at other guys we picked up, I love the pickup of Ben Powers to fill in the left guard spot. I think that he's just an absolute tank at the left guard position. I believe he's going to be a great fit for that spot in a Sean Payton offensive scheme because I think he fits well. Quinn Miners is another guy who is very much like a Netani Moody, who we let go, sadly, in my opinion, to the Raiders. But he's got longer arms and is better suited to the NFL than Moody is, and he's shown that he can run block just as well. Pass blocking leaves a little bit to be desired, just like Moody. However, I think he's going to be well suited at the right guard spot for us and has definitely earned himself.
Andy hates the Chiefs. I said Andy hates the Chiefs.
Oh, with a passion. Like he absolutely, he's been on record twice.
He went out of his way to say that.
I know. And so I think that's a good thing. It shows a fire and it shows a certain drive that I think we need on the Broncos.
I'm sure Chris Jones is keeping the receipts.
Yeah, exactly. Although Miners is he's a dude that could really push Jones backwards if he's not careful. So I think it'll be really interesting.
I don't know, man.
And then we got
I like him though.
Then we got McGlinchey at the right tackle position. We have a few other miscellaneous guys, but you notice the one position I skipped over on the offensive line, which was the Broncos were really weak last year, and we signed 2 guys to help backfill, but we almost intentionally left the offensive center off the board. And that is, I'm a little bit concerned, is that middle portion of the offensive line. If you have a weak spot there in the center of the offensive line, your guards are then going to try to compensate for the weak offensive center, and then you're basically intentionally weakening the middle portion of your line again, and that's where I'm concerned. So I'd like to see something done there before the draft. I don't think it'll happen, but we need to address that spot quickly. The other one is we only have 3 tight ends on our roster. We went into last season with 6. We have 3 now, and we need to really bolster that position group, see if we can't get a couple flyers on a few guys, and it'll be interesting to see where that position group lands. Obviously, Captain, as you stated earlier, we did acquire Stidham from the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that comes down to the man, the legend. I actually think that Stidham is a very smart player and a guy that fits really well behind a guy like Russell Wilson, because I think Stidham can pick up a playbook very quickly. And I think that he is very, very well suited to be a backup.
I saw a report, and now I need to go back and find it because I don't know if it's that freaking Dev Coleman guy that just makes shit up on Twitter and posts it. But it was talking about how Stidham thought he'd have a better chance to start in Denver than Vegas, because it was pretty evident that McDaniels just wanted someone that's his guy, versus going to Denver, where it seems to be kind of a trial year for Russ. And if it's not working, Peyton's going to want him out. So I'm just kind of curious what a Broncos fan, I mean, you kind of said it already, thinking he'd be a good backup, but I mean, he at least has some starting pedigree and experience, and is a viable option. I think if Russ comes out and is the same type of dude he was, at the start of last year.
That's the main reason is that flash in the pan.
Is he buffering, or is it just me?
I think that was a StreamYard buffer, guys. I apologize for that. But what ultimately happened, I think, is that we saw Russell Wilson, who for the bulk of last year was not good. Right? He just was not, he was inaccurate. He threw a lot of picks. He just did not look good, right? And I think Stidham is a guy that they see as a viable, break glass in case of.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad assessment of a guy like Stidham. And so why wouldn't you want to get a viable backup? To pull a page out of Captain's book there, where he said the most important pickup for the Raiders is the backup quarterback. We need a viable option in the backup quarterback, in that group for the Broncos as well, if Wilson were to his former self at the beginning of last year. It's a fact, right? Yeah. And you also have to remember is that Wilson was out for 2 or 3 games as well. He was actually hurt last season for several consecutive games.
Rippon's not on the roster anymore, right? He is? He's gone, or he is on there? Okay.
No, he's gone. I actually really like Brett Rippon, but, it's one of those things where, you got to make decisions, and he's one of them, right?
He's going to be a coach, dude. He's going to end up being an OC in 2 years.
He's going to be a Kellen Moore. My prediction.
Yeah. Same college.
Yeah. My prediction is that he's going to be like a Kellen Moore. Is that he doesn't have all the physical gifts that are required.
Played for Boise State.
then there you go. He's going to be the next Kellen Moore. It's written in stone at this point, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
But he has the ability, but he doesn't have the physical ability, if that makes sense. And all of the feedback from the Broncos locker room is that Brett Rippon is like one of the smartest quarterbacks in the room. He breaks down stuff at a clip that is just unbelievable, but he just doesn't have the physical gifts to process it quickly enough on the field.
Like Davis Webb, right? Like, I mean, same type of MO. Like, just football, like incredible football minds, but not football talent,
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they always say that is that a lot of the guys that are the best players do not make great coaches because they had the physical gifts to kind of make up the gap. Yeah, they just didn't need to do it, right? Whereas, guys that are mediocre but then elevate themselves, like Brett Rippon, by and large, had no business ever being able to start at the NFL level, but he had the mental ability to be able to kind of elevate his physical gifts to a level that got him to that point. And those are the guys that make great coaches, because they needed to use their mental ability to actually understand and apply, right? So I truly believe he's going to make a spectacular coach. And I firmly believe that. But when you look at the Denver Broncos roster, I'm going to break down a few position groups. Avatar said a few of them. Offensive center is one. Interior defensive line, both defensive, primarily the defensive end position group is where I'm focused at for the Denver Broncos. And inside linebacker is another one that I can absolutely see us needing to try to pull some guys in for. And the Denver Broncos fan base would kill me if I didn't at least call out both cornerback and edge as a requirement for my Denver Broncos moving into the 2023 NFL season, which I do agree with. And some interesting guys. The one person that I do want to call out that a lot of people, because he was hurt last year and he was on IR and he's coming back this season for the Broncos, one player that I do think people need to pay attention to is a guy by the name of Christopher Allen. He came out in last year's draft and was originally slated to be a first or second round pick. He got hurt at the very back end of his college career and came into the league kind of limping, if you will, into the draft.
What did he play?
And as a result, pardon me?
What position is he? Sorry.
Outside linebacker.
Okay.
He's an edge rusher, right? So I actually think that he's going to be a guy that the Broncos are going to see some pretty big production from. I see him as like a Shaq Barrett type. So anyways, that's kind of my prediction. Yeah. He's kind of a good player, right? So Coach, I'm going to throw over to you to give us a breakdown of the Chargers.
I'm good, Jack. Chiefs don't need Chandler Jones. Y'all have him.
Right. Oh, Richie. He took a break. Yeah, the Chargers. Yeah, probably. The Chargers. Not really in realm of big splashes. Just some solid signings, I guess you can say. I guess in between shows, the biggest news was us, signing Eric Kendricks at the time. And I think the Trey Pipkins deal was done. We talked about that last week. Our right tackle, solidifying our right tackle. But since then, we re-signed Donald Parham, our 6'8", 240-pound tight end, to be a tight end number 2, hopefully. And hopefully we still draft one. I'm still praying for that. With the way how deep the class is, especially with Gerald Everett being on this last year of his deal. So we got him back in fold. We re-signed Morgan Fox, our surprisingly well-versed every down D lineman. Got thrust into duty more so. He brought in to be a pass rusher, but he was thrust into duty and more so on first and second down time frames, because of the injuries in the D-line area. So they brought him back to be a hybrid pass rushing / DN for a 34 DN for us. So that was good news. Like we alluded to earlier, we lost Drew Tranquil to the Chiefs. He signed once we signed Eric Kendricks. He went in to sign with the Chiefs. I think Chiefs had that in their mind. It was about Incel, and he had in his mind that he wanted to stay in the division. So I guess it worked out for both parties. Because the question wasn't how much he's going to play with Bolton and Gay already in place. You know how much.
That's what I'm saying though. I don't think he would sign there if they didn't present him with some, you're going to be our sub package guy, or something to get him. Unless he's just like, hey.
He's a former safety, so he was a safety in college, so he converted to linebacker in the league. So he has decent coverage skills. I give him very athletic, good coverage skills. I give him a lot of credit for that. So he might be a nickel in pass, but
he's probably the best coverage backer that the Chiefs have now.
Yeah, possible, very possible. Very possible. So yeah. I mean, it could be one of those scheme things. They can utilize them from a scheme fit. Like it's only a 1 year deal, so they're not tied to him for any long period of time. So they'll see how it works out. If he fits in the role they want him in, then they maybe retain him. If not, then he'll move on. But also there's the idea he's 28, be 29 next year. So he was looking to get paid, and the market didn't bear it. So. There's also rumors that the Chargers offered him a deal, and he didn't accept it, thinking he could get more on the open market. Ended up signing a 1 year deal. A lot of those rumors flying around, but who knows if that's true or not. We're not in the negotiation room, but yeah, re-signed our punter, J.K. Scott, who led the league in hang time punts last year. Foster, Sorrell, Easton Stick, the backups. That's pretty much it. As far as signings go, like I said, we've been pretty low key. We've been tied heavily to Josh Johnson in free agency, as a second safety.
San Diego guy. Yeah? Oh, never mind. I'm thinking the QB, man. The guy's been around forever.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. No. No. Oh no. Not him. No. Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson is so old. He played quarterback for Harbaugh when Harbaugh was the coach at SDSU.
Wow. Yeah. That says a lot.
I think he's been on almost every team. Honestly.
He might have been. He's definitely a journeyman. You look up journeyman in the dictionary. That's him, right?
That's him.
Yeah. No. Josh Johnson III. He's actually a safety. He played with the Browns last year. Got cut. He got released from the Browns. So he played with Staley when he was with the Rams a few years ago. So we've been heavily tied to him as far as signing him in the free agency. But Bryce Callahan's still hanging out there, who I wouldn't mind having back as a corner. But I think they kind of hedging their bet on the idea of the rookies they drafted last year developing. So they may not do that. Calvin Noe is still hanging out there somewhere. I wouldn't mind having him back from his veteran leadership perspective. Troy Reader just signed with the Vikings, I want to say. He's signed to the NFC, so he's gone. Storm Norton, who I'm thankful is gone, is signed with the Saints, so good luck with that. He's a swinging door. So, but yeah, outside of that, man. Bruin. Yeah, so, Nasir Adderley retired.
No. Nobody has a swinging door better than Brandon Parker, dude. I'm sorry.
I think they're competing. If we look at the film, I think they're competing.
I wanted to take a quick time out here, though. Richie, are you drinking a bottle of wine? Or is that just an obnoxiously large beer bottle?
He's still frozen. He's still frozen. What? Oh, that's a beer. Yeah, that's like a beer.
It just looked so massive for a second. I was like, is this full of the straight house and a bottle of wine?
For the record,
like, what do I got?
Long week. A long week.
Hey, Richie, remember when you come down here, I want a good Canadian beer brought with you.
I'm gonna try and bring one.
Okay, well, no, bring two then, because I'm gonna have one as a prop and one I'm gonna drink on the channel when we come back.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a local beer to where I am up here in Canada. You literally cannot get it anywhere outside of where I am in Ontario. This is a brand called Bose. It's one of the best beers up in this area. This is like an 800 milliliter. This is like an 800 milliliter bottle of beer. My neighbor calls it my pirate beer because it literally looks like a bottle of rum. And I thought it was rather fitting to give to Captain Jack as a result of that fact. Yeah, so I am going to try to get him a bottle of this. And there is a reason why it looks like a bottle of hard liquor, because it's about the same size.
Now,
All right.
now it makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
now it makes
tripping.
sense.
I was
Yeah,
like, damn, what is this fool drinking? I thought he was
right.
just housing some
Like,
Jack.
damn, long week, like a stressful
Freaking
week.
Wednesday.
Right. Hump day. Yeah, but getting back to the Chargers yeah, there you go. Yeah, but getting back to the Chargers real quick, just to wrap up the segment. It's I think from a need perspective, like I said, I think we can do ourselves a service by adding Josh Johnson. If there's not much on the market as far as inside linebackers, I think we can get some depth in the inside linebacker room.
Dude.
I know. I'm not sure he would. I'm not sure he would take a minimum deal because we can't afford to give him a lot. But I wouldn't love Miles Jack. Now, I think they're going to look at it from the perspective that if you put Miles Jack on the team, that they're basically crapping on Kenneth Murray, and this is last year in his contract because they said he's not going to play because you want to line up Eric Kendricks and Miles Jack together inside. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. But yeah, I would like some decent inside linebacker depth. Maybe another corner, interior D lineman. Outside of that, and then praying that somehow or another, because they just traded away Elijah Moore today. I thought we could maybe get a cheap draft pick over to the Jets and get him when they signed Lazard and Mecole.
Yeah,
but they traded him to the Browns. So my hope is to get DJ Chark. Maybe he's the only other speed receiver out there that I may
want.
want.
The Chiefs to get him, dude.
I was
talking about him.
Right. So
yeah, he's out. He's
6'4", 198, 4'3", 40. Yeah, I need that in my life. So yeah,
combine freak.
Exactly. 40-inch vertical. So yeah. So that's pretty much the only thing. And they still got the Austin Eckler thing lingering over our heads as far as him wanting to be traded and him being very vocal about his market value and how the market's tanked and he's not,
That's what I was gonna ask you about.
Yeah, I just don't think he's gonna get what he wants. I mean, it's just a bad time. It's a bad time, a bad place to be asking for money at 28 years old. The market's down for running backs. You got a crop of new running backs that are good coming in the draft. We typically have that pretty much every year. It's a rough ask. I mean, I don't think you want to see the idea of anybody getting Derrick Henry the money anymore, especially when he doesn't have Derrick Henry's production. Now, he might score touchdowns, but people view him more as a receiving back than an every down running back. So I don't think nobody's going to trade anything high for him to give to the Chargers to move off of him. And I don't think he's going to get anything cushy on the open market. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know what teams are out there that haven't signed someone already.
Exactly. That's another problem.
That aren't going to go in the draft.
They're either going to go in the draft and get one, or they already got the guy from free agency.
Especially because it's like, what team is going to be like, oh, here's this guy who thinks he's grossly underpaid. So like already telling me he's going to want like double what he's got now.
Yeah. I was telling some guys that are Chargers fans
right now.
He's sitting. It's not. I mean, he signed a pretty reasonable deal when he came to the Chargers. It's not hefty. Let me see real quick. It's definitely light. It's not anything high.
I mean, not
$6 million. $6 million a year. Like it's 5.5. It's 5.5 in salary.
Okay, so hold on, Alex. I actually have a question for you with that. If the Chiefs were to, so for example, you brought in, I can't remember, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, we drafted.
No. You brought it. Remember, you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire really high in the draft, right? And you brought him in to be kind of that versatile pass catching / running back kind of guy. Basically, you brought him to be Austin Eckler, right?
Yeah. Well, with
so
that, yeah,
if
I think that he would be someone like that.
No. Let's be honest. That's what you brought him in to be, right? Like that's why he was brought in. So if Andy Reid is being objective and is saying we have Checo, who's proven to be a pretty solid, running back, certainly outplayed his draft status by a country mile.
Oh yeah.
But now we need to bring in another guy who can fill the role that we were trying to do and is proven as a commodity at the NFL level. If the Chiefs are trying to solidify themselves as a dynasty at this point with Mahomes, do you not think that a guy like Eckler wouldn't be a perfect fit for your team?
No. We're not trading Eckler to the Chiefs. They would have to wait a year for that. Nobody's doing that.
Cap, to answer your thing, it was Devin Harris from the Patriots, the Bills signed. But yeah, no, I mean, I think given how Pacheco performed, and that was a thing on my list to talk about, but then freaking D-Generation X here was complaining, so I cut the Chiefs banter short. for the sake of the audience here. But that definitely is a thing that I think that KC needs to figure out, because like you said, they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's on the 4th year with a 5th-year option being a first-round pick. I definitely think that's someone that they're going to be shopping around, and maybe a team takes, not going to get anything crazy for him, but I think it's definitely the writing's on the wall. They're moving on from him, and I think given how the season went and how Pacheco progressed, pretty clear in signs that he's going to have a much larger role for the next year. And I think it's kind of let's give him the kind of bell cow role, whatever that is, in an Andy Reid scheme, because he likes to carry 4 or 5 guys and use 3 of them. So I definitely see them drafting. They're definitely going to draft someone, because there's a lot of late flyer running backs that I think could be that same kind of lightning in a bottle. The guy from Syracuse is
Sean Tucker. I've been screaming it.
Yeah, like that dude. I mean, there's
legit.
a lot of crazy athletes outside of Robinson and the more guys at the forefront.
Gibbs, yeah.
But I do see them potentially bringing back Jerick McKinnon as someone who, because Andy Reid likes to have like 2-3 guys. He likes to use someone that's a pass catcher. We saw Pacheco kind of taking that role, but you also saw McKinnon. That was almost exclusively McKinnon's role, and that would, I think, in my mind, be what Eckler would kind of be, given with how I think they want the continuity of the roster to go, and growing the young players they've brought in. I don't see him trading and then paying Eckler more to kind of have him be in that 3rd down pass catching role, especially. I mean, that'd just be a waste of some guy's talent and production that he's already shown he can do. My biggest free agent wish in terms of RB for KC is bring Kareem Hunt back, but I don't think that's going to happen.
The press about that is going to be rough. That would be a good ad, but I
don't get it, man. I mean, I said this when that whole thing happened, right? Like it was the Chiefs were a terrible franchise for bringing all these like dirty, just bad character players in and not doing anything about it. So they cut him. Then Cleveland signs him, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so great for Cleveland to give him a second chance. That's what a great franchise."
Well, once the verdict came out, once they got to the bottom of the case, then it was all good. But at the time,
they lost out on what probably, he'd probably be done now if they wrote him like they did for 4 straight years.
They did.
But I mean, he's still got a lot of tread on the tires, and I think that'd be kind of a cool reunion. I don't know if the money.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I mean, maybe because of the market he's not signed, but I'm surprised he's not signed. But
I mean, because Sport Track has him as like a 2-year, $14 million deal.
Yeah, nobody's paying that. Nobody's paying that right now. Especially, I mean, and you to your point, Pacheco is a real good use case for why the running back market is tanked. I can go out there and spend a 7th-round pick for a guy that's going to be a touchdown machine in the Super Bowl, right? Or I can go out and spend $7 million on a guy that is not going to do much more for me than Pacheco was doing. On top of the fact that the most teams that have won the Super Bowl, I think the stat is the last 4 Super Bowl champions have been 22nd in rushing or lower. So
yeah, and you look at what teams have been doing recently that have taken RBs early in the draft. I mean, you saw Barkley. They didn't sign him to an extension. They tagged him. Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, similar
situation.
Being drafted, and they're not even playing his ass anymore. So it's like you look at those, teams that take these guys early and don't value them enough, to pay them long term. I just don't think that Eckler's going to get what he wants from anyone.
That's the issue. Like it's not that we don't like you.
Maybe the Browns can do it.
But Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in a different position. In my opinion, he was not like Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not a Derrick Henry.
He got hurt.
I agree.
He got drafted higher than Derrick Henry.
I know, but my point is he was not right. But he was not a Derrick Henry. Like Derrick Henry is. I don't care who you are. The dude's a special talent. Like he is unique. Like every single team that plays the Titans has to say, like, where's the dude that's masquerading as a running back who should be a defensive end? Everyone's looking for yeah, exactly. Like he is massive. And,
Oh yeah.
and so when you look at Derrick Henry, he's just a special talent, right? He's just unique. When you look at a guy like even Zeke Elliott when he was with the Cowboys for the first block of his rookie contract and maybe like just afterwards, right? He is a unique talent where he was able to produce at a very high level as a bell cow back. There are so few dudes that are like that. You just need to give them credit where credit's due. But it makes no sense, and I agree with you, Coach. It makes no sense to. Right, but I mean, even that made no sense. But at the same time, like it makes no sense to go and pay a guy like Zeke the money that he got paid when he was getting hurt at the back end of that rookie deal. At least Derrick Henry, if you're going to be honest, he never got hurt until basically last season.
Well, and I think it's kind of a different situation too, though, because but you have with Tennessee, right? They kind of built their roster and their offensive mindset around Derrick Henry, around the idea that Derrick Henry is going to get 30 to 40 touches every game. So, you know, to them, it makes more sense to pay him money because that's who you built your team around, you know, whereas you have, you know, your Ecklers, your Josh Jacobs, your Clydes. I mean, that's not – all three of those teams did not build their I mean, Coach talked about it all year. Like the Chargers need to find an identity. If they're going to run the ball, they need to stick to it. You know, Raiders this year definitely leaned on Jacobs heavier than they did in years past. But I think that was more because it was like a contract year. Like this mofo wants to prove it, then we're going to make him prove it. You know, but all three of those teams didn't take a player and then build their entire roster around the idea that they're running the crap out of the ball and they just need a QB that can, you know, move the sticks when they need to and won't turn the ball over. I mean, all three of those teams, all three of our teams are set up differently than how Tennessee is. And I think value the running back position differently than how Tennessee is, at least how they're currently set up.
I agree. But I mean, this is exactly the interesting piece, right? Which is, so for example, Chargers have the Broncos had Williams until he got hurt. You guys now have Pacheco, and the Raiders had Jacobs. All of those running backs were, you know, stalwarts within our various teams at any given moment. But look how fast they can be quickly replaced. Again, going back to Coach's point, which is, you know, you had several running backs in the Chiefs who were kind of good but not great. And then a 7th round pick comes in, spending almost no draft capital on them. And it
just goes.
I mean, they literally took a flyer on him because he ran a 4.340 and he turned out to be a beast.
Yeah. One like Jamal Charles, too.
Yeah.
They took Jamal Charles in the 3rd round because he was a track star. I mean, they always find these kind of needle in the haystack running backs. And, I mean, Kareem Hunt was a 3rd or 4th round pick out of Toledo. So I mean,
there you go.
Well, what about C.J. Anderson for the Broncos?
He was a UDFA, wasn't he?
C.J. Anderson for the Broncos was an undrafted free agent.
That's what
UDFA,
I thought. Yeah.
The dude was a freaking tank. He was he was one of my he is still to this day one of my favorite Broncos running backs of all time.
Yeah,
he was awesome.
But I think we've just seen teams just grossly start to devalue running backs after you saw McCaffrey get his big extension. And
that's
then
the last one you're going to see.
And then they moved him, right? And that's
you know, that's the last extension you're going to see.
We haven't. That was like a 5-year whatever. I mean, you're not going to see anyone do that.
No more $11 million a year deals. Not going to happen.
I mean, look at Jacobs. Jacobs led the league in rushing.
Right, and he got a franchise tag for his trouble.
I mean, you don't know how the discussions went, but it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of rumblings of them even offering.
I mean, the franchise tag came out quick.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just how you're valued. I mean, Philly rode Miles Sanders and they're running attack hard and let him just walk out the door. So,
they did, and look what he signed for with the Panthers, cheap money.
Yeah. So,
Jamal Williams, same thing. Jamal Williams led. Did he lead the league in touchdowns last year?
He led the league in touchdowns and then went to the Saints, and then you got David Montgomery, he's 25 years old, and I mean,
Went to the
a pretty
Lions.
serviceable runner. Went to the Lions on a pretty cheap deal too.
Yep.
So it's just, it's just
passing
not,
league,
not the
boys.
same market. Yeah, it's just not
The passing league.
It's just not no value in running.
Well, the rules have been skewed in that. Right. The rules have been skewed in that direction too, with regards to, how the defense isn't allowed to hit certain guys in a certain way. The middle of the field is basically a free zone now, where crossing routes, like defensive players can't just clock guys the way they used to, which, by the way, I'd love to see back coming into the NFL. I'd love to see a guy in a slot position try to run across the middle of the field and just get absolutely leveled.
You'll see it every now and then, but it gets flagged.
Call me a sadist, but I love those plays. But as I look at that kind of stuff, I'd like to see that kind of stuff come back.
Football.
And that's what makes running back such a low commodity, because they still take punishment. Wide receivers have a longer lifespan now in the league because they don't take the punishment. Running backs still take all the punishment, so they don't value that position. They can just reevaluate it once they get done with the one guy they have. Even if he's a good Bijan Robinson type running back coming into the draft, I promise you, by the time his 5th-year option is up, he'll be looking for another team too.
Yeah, and even it's wild too, because
100%.
I remember when Josh Jacobs got drafted, I think they spent most of the time talking about how he has all these talents but didn't have tread on his tires because he was behind Derrick Henry, and so they was like they were talking about how it made so much sense to get him because he doesn't come into the league with all the wear and tear that someone else would with his type of skill set coming from college. And then they still don't really value this guy's only been here 3 years, they still don't value any longevity you might have because of just the nature of running backs. My kids, if they aren't fat because of me, are never going to play running back. So
yeah,
they're going to be left-handed pitchers and play golf.
So guys, before we let our audience go, and I do want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning of the show, thank you. And for those who are joining us after the fact, thank you. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button below. We would love to have more AFC West fans just join us both live and after the fact. Leave those comments below the video so we can answer them. And if you have any questions for any of us, you can reach out to either one of us on Twitter, and we'll be happy to go ahead and answer you. My Twitter handle is Alex and Captain, all with their Twitter handles right below their names here in the show. Before we let everyone go and thank them for joining us today, gentlemen, there have been some really interesting things across the AFC West that have occurred this past week, specifically this past week. And that is, we have had Darren Waller of the Raiders make some comments, we'll call it negatively, towards Josh McDaniels as a head coach. We've had Draymond Jones with the Broncos make some comments towards our locker room and how it was and all that sort of thing. And obviously, Coach Austin Eckler vocally demanding a trade and speaking to other teams is pretty big. And to be quite honest, though, there hasn't been anything really negative that's come out on the Chiefs from any of the players. But
the champs are the only ones without drama, right?
I will say Juan Thornhill
exactly.
had a tweet. Juan Thornhill tweeted that his free agency market was crazy and he felt disrespected. I can only imagine who that's directed to, but yeah, it's been relatively
maybe the whole league for that matter. Yeah, the whole league.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's put it this way: if you have 32 teams that are not pounding on the table for your name, then the problem isn't the other 32 teams; it's you.
Well.
Yeah, look at Gardner Johnson, right?
Yeah. He fumbled,
exactly.
He fumbled that one though. He did the amount of money he got from the Eagles.
I saw that and I was like, KC, what are we doing? Like,
right.
We wouldn't want to pay this dude $6 million for 1 year. Like,
I'm just saying.
So I want to throw over to Captain first to talk about the Raiders, because I think there's been a lot of news, especially a lot of noise surrounding Darren Waller and others. You know, you have Derek Carr being all pissy about the Raiders. You have Darren Waller being all pissy about the Raiders.
You got David
And then
Carr.
on the flip side of that, well, David Carr's a fool anyway, so I don't listen to anything he says. He wears too much hair gel, so he's probably high. But you know, with regards to that kind of stuff, it's super interesting that you have a bunch of players that are surrounding the Raiders that are clamoring to come back. And you have a select group of Raiders that are willing to be vocal and pissy about it. Curious as to your thoughts, Captain.
Okay, I did put my speakers on, so if you got the buzz, I'm sorry. Best I can do. I will be very, very honest about the Waller McDaniel rumblings. Haven't heard about it. Don't click on it. And the reason why is because, you know what? Dude's not on my team anymore. Seriously. And I said it last show that Darren Waller, per sources that I had, was a cancer in the locker room. So obviously there was dissension there. Okay? There was dissension there. And if this way of going out the door is first off, I love the fact that Waller's wife and Carr's brother are the people that are talking smack, right? Waller's wife says that the reason why he left was because the McDaniels wasn't invited to the wedding. And again, David Carr can suck, not my nads, because I wouldn't want that nasty freak on any of my nads, can suck the nads of any, I'll say it, Chiefs fan he wants. Okay? I don't care what David Carr says. He's a prick. Okay? So he can suck on any Chiefs fans' nads that he wants. Okay? I'm sorry, Rick, I was looking at Alex at the time. That's why you got it, Alex. It was the guy.
Hey, it's all good. You're
good. But again, don't give a crap. Don't give a flying foxtrot what David Carr has to say. I don't give a car. I don't give a car. Boy, that's a phrase.
There we go. Did we just coin a new phrase?
What Kelsey's mom has to say, other than that she's hot and her husband doesn't play in the same city anymore. Oh well. Here's the thing. Waller was it the sour grapes? You're gone. Prove to the Giants that you're worthy of whatever they paid you for. You say you're all that in a biscuit. Go out and prove it. Good for you if you can. But you know what? You haven't been anything in the 2 years since Gruden's gone. Okay, you haven't been anything. Well, I take it back. You have been one thing. You've been injured. And you haven't done anything. Okay. And again, I didn't read it. Okay, and that's just the way it is. Okay, I didn't read it. In fact,
I did have a question I had a question for you.
Because again, don't care. He's not on my team anymore. And the one thing is, at least Derek Carr in his presser gave positivity to Raider Nation, which was nice. But again, I'm going to paraphrase Terrell Owens. That's not my quarterback, man. He's not my quarterback. So, good on you. We won't see Derek Carr probably, for 4 years, and we won't see Waller for 4 years. And if either of them are still playing, we'll see Waller in Vegas because we played the Giants in New York the last time, and we'll see the Saints in Vegas because we either played them. We played them this year, but that was that extra game, which wasn't on that 4-4 rotation. So I think we'll play them in Nolans again if it goes for the home and home. So again, don't care.
But, I had a question for you, Cap, about Waller, and it's just out of my own curiosity of if anything you've heard or people in the chat. There was that news at the deadline that Green Bay offered a 2nd-round pick for him, and that may have not happened, but any event that was news and it didn't happen. So at least to me at the time, they didn't think they would want to move on from him, and then they turn around and exchange a 3rd-round pick for him. And so I wonder if something else had happened. Because I read some articles talking about how in a bye week, instead of rehabbing, he just went home and didn't tell anyone, and wasn't rehabbing, and so I just curious if you'd heard or if anyone knew that something else had gone down from the time frame of the trade deadline to now, or just the run of the mill of him not ever coming back at the end of the season, and they're like, F it, just cut ties, whatever we can get for him now. But I think it just is kind of telling that, they at least at that stage had some sort of hard set line of the value they had that would get them to move on from him, that obviously changed a little bit as time went on. So I was just curious if
actually, technically, Waller was supposed to be involved in the trade for Adams.
Okay.
He was the person that was supposed to be involved in that trade, but because the way it was, you can't trade for a guy that was a franchise person per the rules or whatnot. So
I thought because he failed a physical.
No,
was hurt.
You can't trade a franchise tag guy.
You can't trade for a franchise tag guy. You can
sign. No, because Devontae Adams was on a franchise tag before they traded him.
No, what I'm saying is that. However it was, I think Devontae Adams was. However, Adams's contract was structured, you couldn't trade a asset for him. Okay, that's all I remember. I'm pretty sure that he was either on a whatever it was. You couldn't trade an asset for that. I don't know why, because he was originally supposed to be a part of the Devontae Adams trade. Yes, Waller was. That's why the Packers were going to trade 2 for Waller, but they couldn't do it at that time. I don't remember. And Coach, I'm sorry, I don't remember all of the ramifications, but they said it couldn't have been done at that time. So that didn't occur. And getting back to point, Alex, yes, like I said, his attitude with the Raiders, and again, I'm getting this from people that are actually in the locker room, was he was a pissy. He cared more about going to his girlfriend, now wife's, games than he did with doing the stock of being with the team. Okay. Mm-hmm. Hey, good for him in the fact that he married her, and that's going to be his his albatross or fantastic thing for the next however time. Good luck to him. Again, I don't wish him ill on that, but his attitude towards the team and going out with her reflected on what they thought of him. Okay, now it's a vicious cycle. Which one was first, the egg or the chicken, right? Point being is that they got rid of him, they got a pick for him, and they decided that, at this point, get rid of the contract, get a pick, and move on. And they did that.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, no ill hate. Well, okay, a little bit, but not as much. Because again, he's not my tight end anymore, and another guy's not my quarterback. May they prosper with their teams. I really think that Carr will be an asset to the Saints. I think the Saints are going to win the NFC South. It remains to be seen, and Gabe's not in here because I'm sure Gabe would be jumping up and down about the Giants at this point. Gabe, when you watch this on reruns, you can tell me about it, about how Darren Waller and Saquon and Danny Dimes, or actually Danny make it rain now that he got paid, and Saquon now that he got paid, are going to be the greatest thing in the NFC East. We'll see. They limped into the playoffs, but we'll see if these guys are going to be all that in a biscuit.
Yeah, so going into the Broncos, jumping off of that, because I think that the Broncos have had an equal amount of challenging news as it comes out of what the locker room and other things were. So the Raiders have had multiple players kind of, speak ill of them, if you will. in Darren Waller and Derek Carr, and obviously David Carr just being, well, David Carr. But the Broncos have had Jones and some comments about the Broncos locker room. And what's interesting to me is Draymond Jones almost seemed to have a loathing for Vic Fangio's leadership style. Draymond Jones almost preferred a old school, structured, hard-nosed, get your rear end out there and work kind of guy, right? And what fascinated me about Vic Fangio's scheme and system was that he wasn't particularly good. In fact, he looked awful. If I'm going to be honest, he looked brutal. But clearly that type of leadership style is something that a guy like Draymond Jones wanted, which was a dude that knew what he was talking about, and could kind of put him in his place because he knew more. Like Vic Fangio knew more about football, or let me rephrase. Vic Fangio has forgotten more about football than Draymond Jones knows. And I think that that's kind of what a guy like Draymond Jones is seeking, is a guy that is in that position. And that speaks a lot to what a guy like Shannon Sharpe has said too about football players, is that they respect coaches that literally know what they're doing and how to do it. Even if they haven't done as well when they play under them, they seek a guy that can elevate them to try to make them try to do better, even if it's hard. Because a lot of these pros, they're so physically gifted that they're seeking someone that can force them to do better. And I think that's what you're seeing with a guy like Draymond Jones, who's wanting to find someone who can force him to try to be a better player than what he is now, as opposed to someone that says, you're the best thing since sliced bread, let's go ahead and do it. So I think that's really interesting. And then I also think that, multiple things can also be true. A defensive head coach can be the best defensive head coach you've ever had, but the team has overall suffered as a result of their defensive mindset. And so I think that when you have Draymond Jones, I think he's going to Miami, if I'm not mistaken. I think he can have a career year with Vic Fangio as a D coordinator. But the team overall can do spectacularly well, because I think McDaniel is a spectacular head coach, because I think he is a brilliant offensive mind. And so I think it'll be very, very interesting to kind of see what happens there in Miami. And then the other one that I wanted to bring up, guys, this Russell Wilson news that just literally came up at like the 11th hour almost before we went live, which was he had scope surgery at the end of this past year on his knee, allegedly. And I do wonder, and I would like your feedback. Yeah, exactly. I like your feedback. It seems rather convenient that Russell Wilson had a surgery that had been bugging him for years, and exactly, air quotes on all of that. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I'm looking at that saying, dude, you're worth a boatload of money. You clearly have doctors probably on staff.
Yeah.
So why wasn't this dealt with before you signed with the Broncos? I think that's a crock of crap.
I think I said that either before we were on air or when we were on air, that I think it was made up to try to soften the performance of last year. Or maybe not made up. I mean, obviously he needed something. But, I mean, dudes get their knees scoped all the time.
And my air quotes speak for themselves. Yours does, as does Alex's. Coach, we need some air quotes from you.
I'm not. I'm on the. I'm not. I don't
thinking
know. I don't
Makes me think of that
know.
Chris Farley skit. Where he's like,
I don't really want to get into that. I honestly, truly don't
You're
necessarily
gonna find
agree.
yourself in a van.
About any of
Outside
that
the
restoration
prison.
stuff.
I've never been with a woman. I don't wear deodorant.
No, I agree. Like my thing is that it seems all too convenient to have something like that come out at the 11th hour in the middle of the off season, in the middle of a lull, after having a poor season, a new head coach coming in, all these things. To me, it just seems a little bit too convenient to be as big of a thing as it was. I don't doubt that he had knee scope surgery or some variation of it. But I kind of agree with what your guys' general comments were, which is guys have knee or sorry, the real term that's used in the NFL is cleanup surgery.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so common in the NFL that they're just trying to, make it a bigger thing to try to allow him to come back into the good graces of the Broncos country. And we'll just say I'm skeptical and got to improve it. So, anyways, guys, that's my general feedback on the Broncos news and all that kind of stuff. And he's certainly riding that knee at this point, in my opinion, to see if that helps. And Coach, the Chargers haven't had a tremendous amount of new news in terms of drama, if you will, aside from Eckler. We spoke about it earlier, and it just a couple minutes ago with regards to the Chargers. But why do you think Eckler is pounding the table to leave?
Well, it's not necessarily about pounding the table to leave. It's about pounding the table to get a new contract. Like if the Chargers offered a contract he wanted to, he would sign it today. So it's not necessarily about the fact that he wants to leave. I think he loves being in LA. I think he loves being with the Chargers. It's a team that took a chance on him when he was the UDFA. So it's not about that. It's about the money. He's 28. He hasn't got paid, top of the market, although he's had top of the market production from a touchdown perspective. But he just doesn't want to accept the idea or the facet that, this is probably his last chance to get paid. It's likely not going to happen for him. So, he's basically just speaking the truth that he wants to be paid top of the market based upon his production. He's outperformed the contract that he's on. Now, again, to me, it's a very generous deal when it comes down to the idea that he is, making about $6-7 million a year. If you look at the people that's comparable to him, they're not making $6-7 million a year. So, I mean, if you want Derrick Henry money, I just don't think that's in the cards anymore. And that's just the bottom line. And I think he's overplaying his hand. And I think a lot of people, and I question who's advising some of these guys based upon what's out there and what's the going rate. Quarterbacks on the people and wide receivers on people getting paid right about now, and left tackles, quarterbacks, wide receivers, left tackles, and DNs. If you're not one of those people, you're not one of those people. You're not getting paid. And they'll bounce you around. If you got a contract that's deep and debted to you like Jalen Ramsey, they'll just rework it or ship you off to somebody can pay it for a year. But if you're not one of those people, then I think you're a commodity, and I think they can feel like they can replace you rather than pay you max dollars and be hamstring to you. Especially when you have a team that's on the verge of signing, Herbert to a historic, a franchise quarterback deal. So you have to take that into account. So that's another thing that's in it as well. And I just like Alex point, I think he's going to find anywhere that's going to pay him the rate that he really wants. So he's going to have some humbling in a sense. He's going to have to come down off that, I want this and I want that, and take what he can get. And whatever team is the best situation for him, is it the Chargers or anybody else? Is the situation going to be able to maximize his talent?
No, I think I agree with that. It's just, yeah, I agree. Is really what I'm saying. I agree, and I think he's overplaying his hand. I think he's going to put himself in a disadvantage long term, because I think it shows that he's willing to misinterpret the market and demand more money than what he's worth. And I think GMs and owners are going to pay attention to guys like that and give them the cold shoulder, because they're going to see them as problems rather than the solutions. And I think ultimately long-term for him, he'll have to work much harder now to get himself to a position where teams will ingratiate him when he's in the back end of his career, because they're going to see him as an issue rather than a solution.
Yep.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a wonderful show tonight. I think we've had some really interesting ins and outs of our various rosters. If there's anything we didn't cover and you're upset that we didn't cover, let us know. There's comments down below. Go ahead and leave those for us, and we will do our very best to get back to you. If you would like to reach out to any one of us on Twitter because you disliked us, our handles are by and large right below our names here on the show. So go ahead and reach out to us there on Twitter, and we will do our very best to get back to you. And if there are any topics that you would like us to specifically cover, regardless of the team, we are all here for all of football. And frankly, that's what makes the show a little bit unique, is the fact that we talk about all things football across the division as opposed to about a specific team. Go ahead and let us know either in the comments or via Twitter, however you want to reach out to us. We will be there to try to capture that information. And until next time, guys, where the West Side is the best side, we will see you next week on the Wild Wild West. Just as a quick forward, because I will be in the great US of A, the spectacular country that is the United States of America, next week. I will likely not be here, and I will endeavor to have a fellow member of the MHRT network fill in for me. But Captain, you and I will touch base, and I will likely be seeing you shortly. Until next week, peace! NFL, baby!